What's your school rumor that turned out to be true? Viewers Edition. After reading some truly wild school rumors, we asked you all what secrets your school couldn't keep hidden. And goodness, did you have some stories to tell? Let's get into it, but content warning, many of these stories will touch on sensitive materials such as self-termination, pedos, and statutory R. Story 1. Not a juicy rumor, sadly, rather a dark and depressing rumor that I found out was 100% true. It was that my middle school was trying to cover up the fact that students were killing themselves and that our school had the highest rate of self-termination of students in the entire city. During my last 3 years of middle school, I was introduced to this rumor because of an odd disappearance of 9th grade class photos from the big photo wall. Our school was made up of 3 buildings, and the 7th to 9th graders went to the biggest building, while the kindergarten up to 3rd grade was in another building, and the 4th to 6th grade in another. The big photo wall was a big wall in the lobby of last year's building, which showed the classes for those that graduated from the school each year. The odd thing was that some years were missing classes. The classes were set up in Class A, Class B, and sometimes Class C and D, depending on the number of students each year. However, certain years were missing classes, as in one year had B and C but no A, while another had A and C but no B. I asked this question to my friend next to me, and another kid from my year's Class B told me that the class that was missing was his sister's class because a boy from that class had apparently killed himself. I didn't really know the kid well, and he was known to be a trickster and liar, so neither me or my friend trusted him. Fast forward, and a girl from my class suddenly stops coming to school and is homeschooled for over 2 years before she finally comes back during the second half of 9th grade. I didn't question it at the time and just thought that she was behind in some studies and had to take extra classes. After graduation, however, that girl came and visited my house along with another friend of mine. I hadn't seen her in nearly a year since we went to different high schools, so I decided to catch up. Somewhere in the discussion, I asked why she wasn't around during the last couple of years, and she told me, confused, that it was because an older classman who she was good friends with committed self-termination, and she was severely depressed because she had known him since kindergarten. I was shocked because I hadn't heard anything about that, and my other friend only knew because she had informed her. The girl was confused because she remembered asking the teacher to tell her classmates why she stopped coming to school. The teacher had said nothing. I asked what class he was in, and she told me he was from Class C. I checked the school yearbook, which is supposed to show all classes that were in that year. There was no Class 9C in the year above us in the book. But the biggest confirmation of this rumor came to me in a way that actually affected my family as a whole. My little sister's best friend killed herself by jumping off a cliff. She went missing the night before, and people from the entire neighborhood were looking for her the whole night, including my father and mother. I remember waking up in the middle of the night, hearing the front door open and being greeted by my crying mother. I remember just being in shock outside my sister's bedroom as I heard her and my crying together. My sister and that girl had known each other since kindergarten and was basically like a second daughter to our family and a second little sister to me. I still don't know why she did it, the same with her family. Fast forward a year, and it was the last year for my sister before graduation. My sister and her friends, which was basically the entire class because she got along with everyone, had asked the principal if they could include a framed photo of her for their class picture. He had responded to them in a very unsure and awkward manner and even asked in what she described as almost mocking, "Are you sure that's a good idea? Do you really want to do that? Are the others going to be okay with that?" My sister came home peed that day. The entire class was in on it, and she spoke to her in such a tone about a dead friend that they wanted to be part of their last picture together. My sister and her friends brought a framed photo of her anyway and had it during their graduation. We waited months for the school yearbook to see my sister's class, only to discover that my sister's class was not included in the yearbook. It wasn't even on the school's website. Some friends from a year under my sister's had apparently sent her a picture of the big wall, and she showed me and my parents that her class, which was Class A, was not on the wall, but Class B was. Around a year after I graduated high school, my mom was talking about a discussion she had with a colleague from her job, and she ended up mentioning my sister's friend. The lady then proceeded to ask, "Was it blank middle school?" My mother said, "Yes," and the lady said, "Don't surprise me." Apparently, out of the 19 middle schools that exist in our city, that school has the highest student self-termination rate out of all of them, including the one that is located in an area that is said to be the worst place to live in the city because of all the criminal activity in said area. My middle school had a higher death rate than a criminal-infested school area. That is just heartbreaking to hear, and it leaves such a bad taste in my mouth hearing about the school trying to keep it under wraps. I mean, I guess it could be out of concern for the students, not wanting to have pictures to remind them of such a tragedy, but it feels a lot more like brushing it under the rug and pretending it didn't happen, which isn't healthy. Like, if your school has such a high rate of students taking their own lives, maybe you need to invest in counseling, look into the cause, things like that. Trying to just hide the fact that it is happening is treating symptoms, not the disease. Story 2. A math teacher at my old school slept with one of her students. However, the kid recorded it on his phone and had sent it to his mates, who spread it everywhere, so soon everybody knew. Up until then, she was the teacher who everyone liked and respected. She was married to one of the other teachers everyone liked, and the school basically sent letters out saying it wasn't real and squashed the rumors. A few weeks later, I was out with some mates when one of them brought up this story and said, "You know he was underage, right?" Apparently, my mate knew his family, and not only was he underage, but the teacher had guys to assault the kid, steal his stuff, and make him delete the video. And this was like the third time she'd done it. Story 3. I went to a private school for kids with learning disabilities, ADHD, Down syndrome, Tourette's, etc. It was honestly some of the best years of my life. Until one day it was announced that the school was closing due to lack of funds. This struck all of us as weird, as the school got a big cash donation from a local brewery that had just moved in town and wanted some good publicity. Rumors began circulating about where the money went, until a few weeks later we found out from one of the teachers that none other than the school's superintendent had been embezzling funds. One of the parents worked for the city, did some digging, and discovered the crime. If that wasn't bad enough, the superintendent was using the funds to make statues of herself. So, not only was this superintendent embezzling from a school, but from a school for students with learning disabilities, and making statues of herself. That is the behavior of some kind of cartoon evil mastermind. In fact, frankly, I'm not even sure if I could see a comic book villain doing something like that. Like, Lex Luthor would kill Superman and steal 40 cakes, but stealing from a school for kids with learning disabilities feels like it would be even too much for him, and that's saying something. Story 4. When we got to middle school, our group was feared by grades above us because the first day of school we had 3 fights in 2 hours, so our teachers were also nervous to have us. Anyway, this one teacher was rumored from a past 7th grade group that he was an arist. When we got to him, creepy as F. So halfway through the year, people began to look into it. One kid found 5 vapes and some Viagra plus weed and crystal. Then another kid found intercourse picture albums, and his phone doesn't have an unlock, so somebody went in and looked in his photo album and found pictures of women being AR'd and unfortunately a picture of a young child. Our teacher was always late to class and study hall, so in total this gave students about 15 minutes per day to check this crap out. Anyways, somebody called 911 the day we found the inappropriate pictures, and they showed up, and we were sent on a major lockdown, and then he was arrested. I believe he got about 20 years, my mom said, but I can't remember. Anyways, apparently he had changed his name and disguises 3 times. Her started R-ing in California to New York to, for some reason, Indiana, where he was caught by 12 to 14-year-old kids. Story 5. When I got into secondary school, UK, so 11 to 12 years old, I immediately knew there was something up with my tutor, as he was giving the female students weird looks and getting angry at the guys for no reason. When 2 students started dating and he found out, he made a new seating plan that put him at the back of the class and her basically in front of him. My suspicions were fully confirmed when my friend did an autism awareness speech in each tutor, and he was just staring at her chest the whole time. Nothing came of it even after we reported him, but a few years later when he said a student's dress was too short and that he needed to take photographic evidence to show the head principal, only issue there was that the vice principal's office was next door to his classroom. After that, he was highly suspected, and around a year later, he was caught upskirting 14 to 15-year-old girls during a mock exam. Police searched his phone, search history, and computer. They found upskirt photos of multiple students spanning back years, CP and his home and school computers, search results relating to incest, he had 3 kids, and also a search from the day he got caught saying, "Can the police take my phone as evidence?" I was so happy when he got arrested, but he ended up getting bailed and only got 10 months probation. He did lose his job and rights to see his kids, though, plus he's never allowed to work at any school jobs or any jobs that involve interacting with kids. The fact that he got away with 10 months probation is just gross, but sadly not surprising. What is most infuriating is how long it took the school to actually do something. Years. It took them years. How is that even remotely acceptable? I know I don't know all the info, but it just seems like there needs to be better things in place to protect students. Story 6. In my 6th grade year, we had a science teacher who, throughout the year, had the habit of losing students' homework, thought to be just unfortunate coincidences at first. When it was approaching the last month of the year, I ended up running into that situation where I knew 100% I handed in my work, but the teacher said I didn't. I said, whatever. I was the kid that didn't do homework half the time anyway, so I didn't really care. But then, a few days later, a girl that I sat across from who was uptight and only caring about school and focusing on it and getting straight A's ran into this issue, and I sat there and listened and watched her cry after she tried arguing with the teacher, which at that point made me realize that there was some BS happening. After that class, I went directly to the front office and filled out one of those complaint forms used for students if there's bullying or anything, but I used it on the teacher. The next day, I get called down and the vice principal scolded me for doing that and told me to never do that again. So I moved on, and as the year ended, found out soon into my 7th year that she got fired for that very reason of losing students' work and unintentionally lowering grades of students. It's been 20 years since that happened, but I would love to run into that vice principal. He's now the principal of the school, apparently, and just ask him about it to see if he remembers. Laugh my butt off. Story 7. Does anyone remember the National Murderous Clown incident in the U.S. in 2016? Well, not long after those started happening, rumors went around school that one of the clowns from the news was going to target our school. The rumors quickly became true as someone made an Instagram account with a creepy clown as the profile picture and started stalking various students' profiles. Even DM'd them creepy, threatening crap. The closer it got to Halloween, the more these picked up, and soon the person running the account started saying to look for him on Halloween because he was going to come to school with an axe and presumably kill the students he'd been stalking. The harassment had been going on long enough with dozens of students that they were terrified enough to report it to the admin. We went into a stage 1 lockdown that day while the kids watched the account to see if there would be news, and there was. The guy posted a picture of our school mascot statue with the caption, "I'm here," and everyone in class freaked out. Admin did catch the person running the account, though, a bit of online tracing, a student at our school that thought it would be funny to threaten our school with light terrorism. Supposedly, he had a hatchet and a clown mask in his backpack and claimed he only meant to scare a couple students with it. He was arrested and sent to the prison school in the building next door, DAEP, basically juvie and high school rolled into one. Even assuming that the student was truly just trying to scare these other students as some elaborate prank, there is a not-so-fine line between a prank and breaking the law. Don't do crap that involves terrorizing people for weeks on end with threats to their life. I feel like that should be pretty obviously so far over the line that there can be no doubt to not do it. Is a prank like that really worth screwing up your whole life? Story 8. One rumor that ended up being false in my school, everyone was convinced that the French teacher was in a relationship with one of the music teachers because of how friendly they were with each other. Turns out, no, they weren't in a relationship. She was married to another man and he was gay. They just happened to be really good friends. The funniest part was that they were aware that students thought they were dating and they both decided to troll the students one day. As in, he burst into her classroom during a lesson playing the violin, and the students in the class freaked out thinking he was about to propose to her. When he finished the violin solo, though, both the French teacher and him started laughing before he walked out. Story 9. During high school, we had this female classmate that 100% gives a Gabriela Montez from High School Musical vibe. And they kinda looked like each other, even the way she was known for. She lives in a lower class life. Typical church girl, let's call her Gabriella, not her real name. See, in our school there's no such thing as mean popular group. Our rich popular girls are very down to earth, but after they started to be distant and unfriendly towards Gabriella, We all stood up for Gabriella, thinking those rich and popular groups had let their fame get into their heads. One of them explained that Gabriella isn't who we think she is. She continuously mocked one of them. The problem was they had no evidence to show, yet they added it due to the fact that they don't expect Gabriella's act. It was very sudden that they weren't even thinking of filming her. The time they did this, it was too late and Gabriella was no longer around the same place. After months, someone had been able to film Gabriella with all the least expecting disgusting words she'd vomit from her voice. She not only mocked those rich groups, gave her tons of new clothes, but also she trashed everyone that I've witnessed that had done nothing wrong towards her. Gabriella clearly attacked people's physical appearances, their clothings, their religions, and even ethnicities. Gabriella's envy towards one of the rich girls was also exposed. Everyone had turned on Gabriella. But that wasn't the end of it. She was dumped by her boyfriend for her clinginess and possessiveness. Every one of us had witnessed the way she was towards him. And after the breakup, the ex-boyfriend first was troubled by her obsessive behavior of trying to get him back. He's told us what we see in school is even worse when she stalks him to his house. Apparently later, Gabriella's arrest for harassment as she has got into the level of damaging his property and sending him threats if he won't give her another chance as a girlfriend again. First, no idea who that character is, as I don't really know High School Musical. My high school had more of a Commedia dell'arte vibe, but that's neither here nor there. This Gabriella girl sounds pretty awful, but it also just goes to show you what being a hateful, gossipy person can reap for you. If you just spew hateful crap, then eventually that is what you're going to get in return. That's why I like to try to be only like 25% snarky and mean on this channel. I can handle getting that much thrown back at me. But seriously, try to be nice, folks. Story 10. In year 9, so last year for me, I had this IT class, and I will point out now I was the only girl in my class. The rest were boys. And the teacher for the class was someone named Ryan. Can't remember how to spell his last name. Well, that teacher spent only first term in the class, then mysteriously vanished. But a week after he vanished, a lot of the boys in the class were talking about how his Facebook, there were just bodybuilding pictures of himself, not under any different names. I didn't take them seriously because half the boys who were talking were known to smoke and vape and stuff, so I just ignored it and continued watching YouTube instead of the actual task, which at this point was non-existent thanks to the teacher disappearing, so basically a free class. Well, near the end of the year, I ended up learning from my support worker, who also went to the school, that Ryan had tried to ask her out for coffee breaks out of school, along with multiple other girls, and was actually a pedo. So he had quit because the rumors were starting to spread, and Ryan quit before his working with child check was taken. I honestly thought he was fired or something upon hearing he'd hit up teenage girls and asked to go on dates with them. Well, I saw him again earlier this year working for a radio station I may have worked at in the future, and he did only 2 interviews, both of teenage girls, then went on a smoke break when it was my mom's turn to be interviewed. It was some local Aboriginal art gallery thing. And I just fully went paranoid and messaged my friend who was the one who was asked out before, and none of us could believe he was still allowed to talk with teenage girls considering he tried to date them. Anyways, so I used to hang out with this group of boys at lunch and recess, and guess what table this teacher would always be at? The one with the boys I'd hang out with. Granted, he was always talking about games and stuff with them, but I just found it weird how I was the only girl in a class he taught, and he chose to hang out with my group of friends when I'd always hang out with them. I did look at his Facebook earlier this year, though, and it's just fully just looks like Photoshop, and somehow my English teacher was perfectly fine with reading a book about murder of a teenage girl with a teacher who had hit on young girls while there was an actual pedo in the school. I swear to God, if it wouldn't be an absolute invasion of their privacy, I would want every damned student to have body cams on at all time while in school, because creeps like this seem to keep getting into schools and getting away with this crap. I wish I knew exactly what to do to keep these people from getting jobs in schools, but we just keep hearing about it. Story 11. We had a teacher/coach at our high school who would always attend our parties, who was always close to the students, so nobody snitched on him. But at parties, he'd drink but never black out. He had a wife and kids, too. Rumor was that he'd hook up with junior and senior chicks, but there was never any proof. Till one day he got obliterated and tried to hook up with some seniors. He started crying about how miserable family life made him. He was all one chick. We talked about the next day. Crazy thing about it is he tagged a couple seniors that year. From what we confirmed, once it got to the principal, he was fired immediately and pretty sure his wife dumped him. Story 12. 7th grade, middle of the year, my first year at the school. The girl in my grade's nudes got leaked from an anonymous source. It spread like wildfire and eventually everyone had either heard about it or seen the pictures. The administration suspended everyone who had the pictures in their history or saved on their phone. Anyways, long story short, turns out the English teacher from the other block leaked the nudes. All the kids who were suspended got to come back to school early. The police came and the girl's dad walked him out of the school yelling his head off at the guy. He had some connections and isn't in jail anymore but lost his teaching license. I did some digging on him a little while later when everything died down. He was a registered S offender and had multiple counts of S assault on minors and had been to jail twice. Only reason he got the job was because his cousin was the principal and his cousin was head of the school board. I don't really know what else happened, but the girl moved and we heard she got expelled from her next school for giving a teacher head in his classroom. To the cousin who is the principal and head of the school board who gave his cousin, a convicted S offender who targets minors, a job as a teacher, I hope you go to jail. Like, I don't care if the guy is family. You helped enable that. You willingly put a pedo to work in a school. As far as I'm concerned, you should both be in jail. Story 13. There were several rumors going around that were false, including one in high school where I was supposedly gay when I know for a fact I'm not. But the one which turned out to be true was when I was in year 6. I'm in Australia, so we call the different grade levels years. Anyway, at the time, my class had a female exchange teacher originally from Canada who used to giggle and blush bright red anytime the male assistant deputy principal for the middle school year levels would peep his head in the door. She would also smile and start giggling in a manner that you could only expect to see whenever a courting couple were together. It wasn't long before rumors started flying around the school that Ms. E.Y. was dating Mr. P.D. As we were a class full of preteens, we were rather coy about spreading the rumor because at first we didn't have any proof other than their reactions to each other the minute they clapped eyes on each other. They both strongly denied the fact, however. The one thing they did not count on was my dad at the time had a second weekend job as a taxi driver. One Sunday he came home after his taxi day shift and asked me if my teacher was going out with my then principal. Knowing the rumors, I answered with yes, but was curious to know why my dad would want to know. He told me that he'd physically caught them holding hands while walking down a popular shopping hub in our home city. Now, Mr. PD especially wasn't the type of man you can mistake for someone else given the fact that he was the only man on staff at my old school with a hairstyle likened to the late 1970s and 1980s, but this was 1996. What made it worse was the fact Mr. PD was bi and was also in a relationship with another man at the exact same time. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.